This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. Today's we focus on the fact that we like doing updates on the Semi that introduce questions and answers that make sense to evaluate where we are. As you know, you've seen a number of images and videos of external and internal to that truck. And now we're starting to get into some interesting performance questions. Today's question that we wanted to get into is the whole question of, can Tesla actually go 1,200 miles without charging? And the answer to that is, I would say, is maybe, maybe not, but that's what we explore today. We also take a look at marketing by Pepsi relative to the impact they're having by the choice to partner with the Semi and Elon. And then finally, we take a look at the Semi is listed at 500 miles, but most of the travel of the vehicle has been focused on about a 425 mile range. And we kind of review this and then move forward with some conclusions from everything that we've discussed previously. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the show, would like some better ideas on investing and trading, please join us over on Patreon as well. By the way, as you saw today, we saw a nice $11 jump in Tesla's stock price. We seem to have established a 195 to about 215 price range, followed by end of week arrival below $200 a share. Unless Elon brings something huge on March 1st, I would expect us to do the same cycle as we've been doing for the last 3 weeks. So there is a photo, and we'll include it, of a Frito Laye badged semi-trailer from Tesla with a white rear of the truck. That photo actually came from a Tesla observer that was based during the Super Bowl in Glendale, Arizona. So this photo kind of raised some interesting questions. With no charging sighting before the return, might we have the theory show of another pack in the back of the truck plan as a possibility? The Semi was not fully dressed out, with only the tractor, not a trailer. There are 3 possibilities. Tesla arranged to allow it to use a supercharger used for cars in Arizona. Semi carried its own power in the rear. As you know, in the case of the Nuremberg Tesla actually installed temporary supercharger power at that track so the vehicles could be charged up on a regular schedule. And it looks like we may actually have sort of temporary semi-charging facilities for the Semi that we didn't know about, but Tesla's made available to Pepsi. Another possibility is that Pepsi has installed charging we cannot see in Southern California, let's say Rancho Cucamonga. We cannot see that allows their trucks arriving from Northern California to power up, and this Glendale trip would actually fit into that type of a schedule. So D is another possibility, not mentioned, but we have some sharp folks that watch our show, and we welcome your input on this. Regardless of which one it is, we've entered a new routine range realm with the Semi. There were 2 reasons why the natural gas long-distance trucks failed. The access to stations along the route was one, but the biggest issue for truckers was a dearth of spare parts on the road, resulting in multi-day wait for parts, making that solution not viable. This kind of movement by the Semi with little difficulty is impressive, given the fails that we've seen going on. The second thing we wanted to review today is the fact that Pepsi is doing a great job of optimizing Semi Tesla exposure to demonstrate its climate change initiatives and benefiting from the consumer choice this kind of marketing is providing. With the video you're seeing, there's no doubt the Semi has provided millions in free advertising that says Pepsi is a good consumer choice if climate change is a concern. And given that their competitors can't make similar claims right now because they haven't gotten their trucks yet, definitely gives them a leg up in the marketing process. The next thing we wanted to review in general that we're getting more and more data on is the Tesla's 425-mile use of the Semi is an interesting choice given the impact on batteries. As you know, the optimization of batteries is achieved by limiting use in the range from 20% of battery to 80%. Will put the pack in a somewhat of an unlimited use zone. So we've had one Tesla engineer, Mr. Duff, review the fact that by carefully constraining use in that use range for the batteries, you end up with the potential for unlimited cycles for those batteries. If we further consider the below freezing zone consumes battery at almost a 50% increase clip, we're now in a range of, let's say, 250 miles for the Semi. Now, Daimler/Freightliner has a 250-mile range for their e-Cascadia rolling out over the next few months. The challenge with that truck is they have similar constraints to Tesla in terms of percentage of batteries you can use. And if we look at a cold environment for their semi-trucks, that means that you'd have to, in essence, cut their 250-mile range to less than half. So in theory, they end up in that 100 miles of range space versus Tesla's 250. Heating for the driver and electronics means they may be in the 50 to 75 miles of range zone, which is sort of difficult to see viable. So I bounced over to the e-Cascadia sort of battery usage because there's a lot of issues that pop up with a 250-mile range battery that you don't get with a 500-mile range battery in terms of the amount of flexibility you have, particularly in colder or super hot areas where the battery is using its own power to regulate its temperature, and therefore Tesla ends up being a better choice in sort of peak temperature hot or very low temperatures cold because they have that extra range in order to operate better. So overall, the trends that we've noticed for this month are positive, and there are no efforts, at least from first client or subsequent clients, to abandon ship just to join it. Well done to Semi and Tesla team working on it. Now, I would further like to say that for our next show, we try to do a weekly Semi show at this point. Our target is to sort of visit the current production facility with some video to sort of take a look at how new production is going and if we can gauge what the pace of production might be given finished trucks that are now exiting the factory, heading to customers. We're actually looking forward to any video that shows up that helps us assess this better. At any rate, thank once again for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight and the end of our most recent update on the Tesla Semi status. Wanted to move on to our health tips once again. As you may recall, President Joe Biden announced that acid reflux is an issue for him. I wanted to note to you that he's taking Pepsi AC is what he said. And it's an interesting circumstance because, as you may recall, one of our show advisors is a upper respiratory doc at the University of Louisville who basically gave us pointers on things to consider when it comes to acid reflux. Number one, do not go to bed within 4 hours of eating is ideal because it allows all the food to digest prior to you going to bed, because the acids in your stomach will look to digest you. Second move is minimum 2 hours is what he recommended prior to going to bed. Number three is that a lot of people use things like Pepsi AC, which the president is using, and they're getting relief, but the damage from the bile and the upper respiratory is still done. And so therefore, it's a better idea to manage this stomach acid issue organically than it is to do so in this method of using over-the-counter medication to address it. And then finally, the research we did on this suggested that one way to address this problem could be a slight tilt in the bed by having that downward, your head up and your feet down trajectory. That could also help in the process of consumed food moving downwards towards your feet while you're still sleeping, rather than sitting steady state or rolling backwards and up. Someone I ran into suggested that possibly using pillows to prop yourself up, or a tilt, if it's a multi-tilt bed, might be a way to address it as well. And if you know what your destination is, I think that makes sense. The simplest route, frankly, is to just cut off your eating times and address the issue and avoid using things or methods that create a greater problem. So something else to think about. We want to thank those folks at CNBC for the video that we've used as the running footage for this show. Obviously, they recognize the importance of the Tesla Semi and decided to include interviews with different folks at Tesla and videos of the truck in order to sort of be a part of the process as well. And it is greatly appreciated. At any rate, once again, I want to thank you for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, au revoir, le hit road, hoda hafez, zdravstvuyte, ni hao ma, kambanwa, Japanese. And in Jamaica, we say enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and bye for now.